Welcome to In the Green Room. I'm Kinga.
And this is Martin. Welcome this fine Tuesday evening or afternoon. And we are here with the famous Barry Goldwater Jr. I'm very happy to sit down and talk with you today, sir.
It's my pleasure to be here.
It's really an exciting day for me because every time I feel like I learn so much from you, Barry. You're just a wealth of information, and you and your family have done so much for this country. Welcome to In the Green Room.
Thank you, Kinga. I've been on this program, I think, once before. And
Twice
before, okay. It's always a challenge.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to Barry Goldwater
Being
on the show. Woo. I would love to hear. I hear you're going to be giving a speech sometime soon. Is it tomorrow or next couple days?
No, I'm giving a speech at the Anthem Rotary.
Okay.
Friday at 7:30 in the morning.
All right. And what are you going to be talking about?
Yesterday and today. I'm going to talk about where we came and where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about current administration, what they're doing, where the country is, and where we need to go.
Oh, I love that we're all about solutions. That's what the show's about.
That's right.
So solutions.
And I'll talk a little bit about my family, who's been in Arizona since 1850.
Yes.
Can we start with that?
We can start any place you want. It's your show.
It's your show.
Well, I'd love to hear, just so, if somebody just starts the show, we want them to know first who you are.
Well, my name is Barry Goldwater, and it's Junior. My father was Barry Goldwater Sr., and he was a United States Senator from Arizona for some 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, our great-great-grandfather came over across the pond and settled in San Francisco, did business in the gold fields, and then went bankrupt, went down to Los Angeles, and they were Jewish peddlers.
Mm-hmm.
They had a wagon full of goods and services that they hauled across the desert and wound up in Prescott in about 1850. My great uncle, Morris, was the mayor of Prescott, Arizona, for some 20 years. He brought the telegraph and started the volunteer fire department. He was in the Constitutional Convention that crafted the Arizona Constitution. He served in the state legislature.
Wow.
And taught my father about the basis of politics, and that politics is all local.
Mm-hmm.
It's about people, and it's about freedom and protecting that freedom that so many people try to get to this country to enjoy.
Freedom. That's so important.
Yeah, so they that little wagon turned into a regional department store called Goldwater's, and I went to ASU, Arizona State University, and my intentions were to grow up and eventually run the Goldwater store. And I studied business, marketing, clothing, fabric. I could lay out a simplistic pattern right here in front of you if you wanted to for a dress.
We never talked about that on the previous shows.
That was going to be my passion, my future.
Really?
And the year I graduated, my father and his brother and his sister sold the Goldwater store.
Mm-hmm.
I'm standing there with a diploma, no place to go to work.
Right.
So I went to my father a little bit upset. And I said, "Why'd you do that? You knew what my passion, my future was going to be." And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, "Barry, I gave you an education. Now go out and use it."
Love it.
That was the end of the discussion.
It was the best thing he ever did.
So I went home, packed up my bag, and I drove to California, became a stockbroker. For about 10 years, became a partner in my firm and earned enough money to run for Congress from California in 1969.
Okay.
My father ran for president of the United States in 1964 and lost to then Lyndon Johnson.
Right.
What was that like when he was running for presidency? What did that entail for you?
Well, I was quite young. I was like 19, 18 or something like that, and the whole family was involved in that presidential race, like most families are. And I I went in every state in the Union, made speeches for my father. My brother did the same thing. We had an enjoyable time. It was a lot of fun meeting people and getting around the country. And he lost, and of course, that was disappointing, but life goes on. And he sat out for 4 years. And in 1968, he ran again and was reelected from Arizona. And I ran for Congress in 1969 and was elected in California. Mm-hmm. So for the very few times that in our history there was a father and a son.
How exciting.
Serving together in the United States Congress. I was in the House and he was in the Senate.
I never knew that. That's so exciting.
Yeah. And what was that like?
Wow.
What was that like for you?
Well, it was, I enjoyed being a congressman. It was a challenge, of course. Mm-hmm. My background was mostly finance and clothing. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, I had to make votes on agriculture, banking, foreign affairs, defense. So it was a real challenge to
you had to learn a lot,
become knowledgeable, and listen a lot, and try to cast the correct kind of vote that reflected my constituents wanted. So it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed the challenge.
How exciting, though, that you and your dad could work together like that, and I'm sure your dad was so proud to see that you followed in his footsteps.
Well, I think he was. Mm-hmm. We didn't get too. We got together on a few bills, like the Privacy Act of 1974, which was the first time that the Congress or anybody's tried to codify the concept of privacy. Mm-hmm. Privacy is so sacred in this country. We take it for granted. Yep. Mm-hmm. Maybe not so much today with the Internet, but in those days, privacy was very, very important. And so I was a co-author along with Ed Koch, who was then, he was a congressman, but then became the mayor of New York. Ed Koch and Barry Goldwater passed the Privacy Act. And
can you tell us what that entails? I don't really know.
Privacy is sacred. It's we expect it. We kind of take it for granted, but in fact, your privacy is intruded upon all the time. Your name and all your personal information is on a lot of lists. Your driver's license, if you're a pilot, your license for flying airplanes, your bank accounts, your health, all your health records, all very personal information. And it's important that information is protected because it's an extension of you. Mm-hmm. It's just as sacred as your property rights that's guaranteed under the Constitution. But privacy was never mentioned by the Constitution. Mm-hmm. But I would submit that without privacy, so much of our freedoms cease to exist. So it was important that bill passed. All of your privacy statements that you see on your health, every time you take out insurance, mm-hmm. there's a disclaimer about privacy, and then you have the health privacy. What do they call that?
The HIPAA law.
The HIPAA law, mm-hmm. all stemmed out of that Privacy Act.
Right. And
so it sort of set the standard and got people thinking about it. Mm-hmm. But then along came the computer and the internet, and that threw it out. Yep. My father and I also passed a law that prohibited the Social Security number from being used mm-hmm. to identify people in mm-hmm. personal files, unless it was authorized by a member of Congress in a specific kind of legislation. And about a year later, it was a senator passed legislation that provided the Social Security number to be used to track down on delinquent fathers when they're paying their alimony and what have you. So
right.
that prohibition didn't last too long, but it was symbolic of the fact that our privacy is so sacred, and we should not take it for granted. We all ought to be raising up in a revolution mm-hmm. to try to stop that, and don't be so casual about giving out your Social Security number.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I go to, I don't know, I feel like almost everywhere I go, someone says, "What's your Social Security number?" And I always say, I just say I don't know it, and then they say, "Oh, okay,"
yeah.
Because when you just say you forgot
mm-hmm.
it, what can they do? And so that's what I just say. But I have it. It's indelible. I know it. But I agree. You shouldn't give it out. And a lot of people do give it out, and they don't realize.
Well, just the amount of crime that now happens with taking someone's profile or their person, all their, like you said, this sacred information, and then making contracts on your name, and then and your credit's messed up. And I mean, it is such an important thing, and there's so many people that are affected by it. I'm sure that's why you started the legislation in the first place back in the 70s, because there was people having issues.
Well, yes, there were. A misidentification on police records. You could get stopped because you had a similar license plate number or you looked like somebody. And so this legislation allowed you the opportunity to examine your information that's kept in files and to file an amendment to it to correct it. It prohibited the collection of information to be used for other causes other than what it was collected for.
Right.
So it had a lot of provisions in it that allowed you to manage your own personal information that's held by the federal government this time.
Right.
Well, Barry Goldwater Jr., you're all over the internet. I know. I thought, okay, he's coming on the show. Let's look him up so I know a little bit more, even though you've been on the show and we've been friends. And you're all over. I mean, when you Google your name,
right?
You're ubiquitous.
Oh boy, don't use those big words.
It's $20 college word. Cheers.
Cheers to Barry. And Barry, people don't know this. You care a lot about the environment, and it's really important to me. You're Republican, but yet you really love nature. You love environment. You care about sustainability, and that's why our show, I think, is so popular, because you can actually be Republican and still love the environment. And I think Republicans get a bad rap to where people say, oh, you don't care about the environment, you don't care about the ocean, you don't care about the parks, and that is not true.
No,
Can we speak
right.
a little bit about that?
Well, you're right. I think the Republicans do get a bad rap, and hats off to the Democrats. They grabbed that issue and ran with it very well, and the Republicans just were asleep.
I agree.
But I would contend that most Americans concerned about their environment of where we live.
And your father photographed the environment and nature, and has some very beautiful photography. Did you go with him on all these beautiful hikes?
Well, my father, I didn't see too much of him. But every weekend, though, he would make sure he was home, and he'd take the family out on camping trips.
Oh yeah.
And we have rode horses all over this state. And in the process, he was taking photographs. But he would tell us a lot about the environment. He would tell us about how these canyons were made, and the Indians and their homes that they lived in. And when we were walking in the trees one time, I remember him telling us that there's more decency in one pine tree than you find in many men. and then that when you walk through those forests, you're walking with God, and never forget it.
Yes.
And so I grew up loving my state, and marveled at just how beautiful it is.
It's so
and
beautiful.
How important it is that we protect it. In fact,
cheers to that. Cheers to Arizona. We love Arizona, and we love nature, and we've got to protect it.
It's my favorite state. That's why I live here.
And when you think about the environment we live in, you wonder how did all this happen? Who made these mountains and these oceans and the vegetation,
incredible.
the trees? And I think that's what got me close to God, because I couldn't answer that question. Somebody bigger than any of us caused all this to happen. And it brought me very close to God, so that I have a firm believer in a higher power. I know he's out there, or she is out there.
I agree.
that is watching after us. And I think it's important that we do protect what he made for us.
Right. And I think it's important that we should be able to speak about God.
But you know something? In protecting our environment, we have, 340 million people live in the United States, and billions of people around the world. We can only really look after our own here in the United States. And a lot of this environmental protection is influenced by government policy.
Right.
Now, the government, thank God, created a lot of natural parks. starting back with Teddy Roosevelt. And we keep on doing this, and that's important. But when you get down to today, under President Biden, and this whole climate change thing, I agree there's something going on. But I think we discount history when the climates have changed before. The fact is, I believe that man has contributed to the degradation of our clean air and our clean water. All this plastics is in the oceans.
High five for that. Here, we need to get rid of it. We need to get rid of it.
Stop that.
Yes.
And I'm involved with that program right now.
Really?
Yes.
This is so exciting. I didn't know. Here on In the Green Room, we're learning about how he's instrumental.
We're cleaning up a lot of plastics in a program we have. But when you get government trying to do something too fast, you can create mistakes. And this idea of getting off of fossil fuel onto renewables is important, but you've got to let it evolve.
Right.
Naturally, you just can't cut fossil fuel off and expect everybody to jump into an electric vehicles that don't exist today.
Right.
And I remember when I was in Congress, I was on the Energy Research, Development, and Demonstration. And in 1974, we had an oil embargo.
It was a big deal back then.
That was a big deal, and people were standing in line to get gas. It was being rationed.
Yep.
And President Jimmy Carter was the president. He declared war on energy independence. The Congress created all these committees, and I got stuck on the research committee, and I didn't even understand how a light bulb worked. But this little subcommittee jump-started renewable energy. In those days, photovoltaics was only used in space because it was so expensive and inefficient.
Yes.
Photovoltaic cell, we're lucky, it gets 25% efficiency. But in those days, it hardly got any. So we poured millions and almost billions of dollars into wind power, photovoltaics, geothermal, OTEC, magnetohydrodynamics, which I know you don't know what is. But all these renewable and electric vehicles, we called for a demonstration of 300. This was back in 1975, 76, 78. We called for a demonstration of over 300 electric vehicles. We put money into the universities, into the private people, into companies, and into the government laboratories. And we had 300 electric vehicles run around the Capitol in about 1979. But we jump-started renewable energy.
Right.
It took about 40 to 50 years for a photovoltaic cell to compete financially with a fossil fuel.
Right.
And today it does. And today we can wean ourselves off of fossil fuel.
But you're right. It's going to take a while.
Onto renewables. But you just can't do it overnight.
Right.
We're not going to have electric vehicles that's available at a reasonable price for probably another 10, 20 years.
Right.
So you still have to have the fossil fuel so we can transition into more renewable types of energy. So you've got to have policy. And I'm afraid that what's happening in Washington is we're trying to move things too fast. You're going to cause mistakes.
Oh, that always happens, especially with a big bureaucracy, whether it's a company, whether it's a government, whether it's just an organization. You try to move too fast, and the complexity of what you're trying to do becomes very inherent very quickly. It's kind of like that, I think it was Patton that said that, a battle plan is only good as until the first bullet is fired. It's kind of, there's just so many contingencies, so many complex things that happen, unintended consequences.
What's exciting about this is that you're seeing a lot of new little companies popping up to make an electric vehicle. Right here in Arizona, we're becoming almost the capital of EV, electric vehicles, being manufactured here. I just went down and visited with and might be doing some work for a company called Zero Electric Vehicles.
Zero Electric Vehicles.
Yeah,
sounds interesting.
I've heard of them.
Well, it's a cute little company. It was created by a husband and his wife and their son.
Oh, okay.
And the son was the one that was coming up with the ideas.
Okay.
And what this little company does, Zero Electric Vehicles, is all these delivery vans that are delivering things around. Well, after a while, when they get up to 300 and 400,000 miles, people want to trade them in. But the vehicle's still good. It's the engine that's worn out.
Right.
You take it into Zero EV, they'll take your engine out, and replace it with an electric motor and battery.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness.
And give you
That's so sustainable.
They'll give you a new VIN number, and you
Really?
can start depreciation from zero, and you drive out the door. And all of a sudden, instead of all that metal going into a scrapyard and know what to do with it, we have that vehicle can still be used for delivery, but now with an electric motor. So
That's so brilliant. Can you arrange getting them on the show with you together?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, let's do a future show with them.
I'm sure we can.
That's amazing.
And then, of course, we have the, storage is very important when it comes to the solar electric generating arrays that are being built out in the desert. Those only work when the sun shines.
Right.
So the idea is to put right next to it a battery storage facility that will the array will keep the batteries charged, so at night they can continue to produce electricity. Well, it just so happens there's a great little company out of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho called Core Power.
Core Power. I've heard of that one too.
Well, they're have bought a huge piece of property in Buckeye, and they're going to build a factory down there to employ over 3,000 people, making these little battery cells.
Cheers to that. That's a big deal. I love when we can support local companies.
We have some great companies. There's another great company here called Depcom. They build these solar arrays all over the country. In fact, the president of it is running for the United States Senate, Jim Lehman. But Depcom is a terrific company that is so sophisticated, and they go out there and they get these contracts. They build these huge solar electric generators all over the country.
I've never heard of that company. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Well, it's just that's all they do. They build they build these solar electric generating plants all over the country, and then they monitor them. If a bird poops on them in North Carolina,
They'll know it.
They'll know it here, and they send a maintenance team out to fix it. But there's a lot going on in Arizona that's so exciting in this renewable energy, electric vehicles, battery storage going on.
Well, there's even beyond that, software, defense. I'm on the West Valley Defense Alliance, and get to meet business owners they're bringing their businesses here. And I think it goes back to what you said earlier. It's a lot of that reason is because of policy, because the state and local governments. I know that we've been working with the city governments specifically, who are, building data centers. They're building infrastructure for electricity. They're, and solar power and other types of energy to be able to bring these amazing brain trusts, these people that are coming here, and that's what's fueling the growth right now. High property prices. All of that is all, again, like you said earlier, driven just by policy, because that's what whoever made the policy wanted to have happen here.
We can't overlook the private sector making it really happen.
True.
There's nothing the government does. All they do, they're good at taking money away from the productive side of the economy, and
That's fair.
and giving it to people who are not productive. And that's okay.
It's not okay.
Yes, it is.
Really?
We need a safety net to help those who
Yes.
are in trouble. They may be elderly. They could have a medical problem. Or they may be out of a job. But that safety net should be able to catch those folks, help them out so
Well, I
they
agree
can
with
get
that.
into productive.
Of course, we agree
But
with
too
that.
oftentimes, these welfare programs, people become dependent.
Right.
Right.
And they become takers instead of producers.
Right.
And so you want to have a safety net, but you want to have it so that people either have to go to work or they help them until they get back on their feet.
I think you should run for president.
No, thank you.
Really?
It sounds like you're doing already a
So
lot of
much.
amazing things. What are your
He is.
current passions at the moment, other than what you've mentioned?
Well, the environment. I mean, you can hear
I
him.
know.
He's so passionate about it. I mean, I
know.
would definitely
I
say
asked
that.
him, Kinga, not you.
And I didn't realize that he's so dapper, and that's why, because he thought he was going to be in the clothing business.
There you go.
No, I have a lot of passions. I enjoy reading. I enjoy my private times. I've got a cute little kitty cat that is my pet. I happen to be single, and
Oh, really? Oh,
All right, ladies.
all these ladies out there, listen up. He's single.
looking for love.
Although I feel like every time I see you, you're with a cute gal.
Yeah, your eyesight's not too good.
So, question: how many presidents have you met in your lifetime? And do you have any photos with these presidents that have?
I have photos with everybody.
Well, tell us.
Well, I have a photograph of John F. Kennedy, and I have a photograph of Johnson, President Johnson, and then Eisenhower. I got a photograph with Eisenhower, who came before JFK, and then JFK, and then who came after JFK? Johnson. Gerald Ford,
Nixon was in there somewhere.
Nixon was in there. I served under Nixon and Ford, and
were you close?
Carter, and Ronald Reagan.
Wow.
Oh, I love Reagan.
Wow.
Oh my
You were in
gosh.
the middle of it all.
Wow.
I served under quite a few presidents. I was in there 14 years. But when you're in politics and government, you meet a lot of these folks that make policy, and so it's a nice little catbird seat to be in.
Right. Do you have any funny president stories?
Exactly. Thank you. You just read my mind.
Oh boy. Ronald Reagan was a pretty good friend. He and his wife Nancy lived in California, where I lived, and I got to know them quite well, and they were good. Well, Nancy's father and mother lived in Phoenix near the Biltmore.
That's
Really?
right. I remember that. Yes.
Really?
He was a doctor, and so Ronnie and Nancy would come over to visit, and then they became close friends with my father and mother and myself. And I remember one time when I ran for Congress, I told my dad to stay home and send money. and he did.
Yep.
And Ronald Reagan was governor of California, but he said to all the Republicans, "I'm not going to endorse anyone. I'll wait until the primary and then I'll help out. But we can't. I'm not going to get involved." Well, I didn't let that stop me.
Right.
And recognizing that a picture is worth 1,000 words, I knew Ronald Reagan was going to make a speech that night at this restaurant. So my photographer and I got in the bushes, and we knew he was going to get
Seriously?
out. Yeah.
How cute. How funny.
He was going to get out of his car here and walk up to the facility.
Relentless focus on that.
Yeah, and so when he got out of his car and he started walking up, I just walked up next to him and said hello, and my photographer was right in front. He just took a bunch of pictures, and we peeled off and went back to our office, and the next day that picture appeared in my campaign material.
Oh,
And it didn't say anything.
Right, just this.
It's just a picture of the governor at the time and myself. So that was fun. But I got to know Nixon in a way.
what was he like?
He was kind of quiet. He was quiet. He kept a lot inside.
A little bit stoic?
Oh, I don't know if that's the right word. He was very smart. He was a pretty good president, actually. He just got caught up in Watergate.
Right,
and he didn't manage that very well, and he got run out of office. It
Well,
just
aren't they all
reminds
doing
me
that now?
in politics, if you get run out of town, you want to make sure you get out in front and pretend it's a parade.
But I have a question. Aren't they all doing that?
I love that.
Aren't they all doing that now? But he just happened to get caught?
He got caught.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I can't say that everybody's doing that. No,
But-
most people in politics are good people. They're trying to do the best. Every once in a while, like any industry, you're going to have your bad apples that get led astray.
But if you think about it, people make jokes about almost every, lawyers, politicians, doctors. People make jokes about every. They kind of pick on it.
Well,
So
sure.
I agree with what you're saying. There's great people in
How
every field.
How do they define politics? Poly meaning the Greek word many, and ticks meaning blood-sucking creatures.
Yes.
Hold on, is that somebody else's quote or is that yours? Because that's funny.
I don't know where I got it, but I'll take
I've heard it. I've heard it before.
I love it. Well, it's so exciting because I was able to meet you, I don't know, right after, actually while I was dating my ex-husband, and their families go way back with your family. And I just, from the moment I met you, I just remember you got off some jet and you showed up at this party and you just were so eccentric and exciting and passionate and just a great speaker. And I really enjoyed meeting you. Gosh, it's going to make me sound old, but this is like...
It was a while back.
Over 30 years ago.
A couple years
Over 30 years ago.
Back in those days, everybody knew everybody.
Right. The biggest small town in the world, right?
It used to be, not anymore.
So what's on your bucket list of like how you're going to make change and how you want to make a difference? Because you're doing so much and you've already done so much.
Yeah, what's next?
As I know,
or what's current?
There's nothing next as far as politics is concerned. But I stay involved in politics. I get involved in individual campaigns, and I provide advice and things that I've learned. I've spent my whole life in politics. In fact, somebody said that you must have come out of the womb with a bumper sticker on your butt. I've been in it because of my father and others for a long, long time. So I still stay involved. I'm concerned about the Republican Party here in Arizona, that they're not doing what they should be doing. We have
Well, you need to give them guidance. I know my friend Kathleen Wynn, who's been on the show, she was outstanding. She's going to be running. I think you're friends with her. I think she mentioned.
Probably.
Kathleen Wynn,
Yeah.
the beautiful blonde. So smart.
What's she running for?
I think she's going for governor, right?
No.
Oh, no. That was
no,
Kathleen was the one that's going for the Senate seat
in Tucson.
It's important that we have a two-party system in this country. We don't want more than two parties, because then you get coalition governments like they have in Italy and France.
Right.
And you need to have a consensus, and you can do that with two strong parties. And Arizona, it's interesting. Arizona was always a Democrat state because it was part of the South.
Right.
And then about 1930, 1940, and especially 1950, when Eisenhower won and my father won and went to the United States Senate, Arizona started to become a Republican state.
Right.
And it's been Republican ever since. Now it's starting to swing back. And the pendulum swings back and forth. I think what's happening is all these people from California are coming over here, but instead of coming over here to get away from all that bad stuff that's going on in California, they're bringing it here with them. But so the Republicans are going to be challenged, and it's important we get better leadership, and we do what Republicans traditionally have done, and that's to go out and work hard,
right,
to educate the voters, to get them registered, to get them out to vote. That's what we do, and we're not having the leadership today that we should. And it concerns me greatly, but we've got some great candidates, and that's the way it should be.
I agree. I mean, I think that you're right, that it's the candidates, and I think you mentioned it earlier, where local government is extremely important. It's not the feds that are going to get things done. Yeah. It's the state and local governments that are going to have the most impact on the people here. And like you say, bringing in all these new people, we need to educate them on what's going to work for Arizona. Yeah. Because what worked in California doesn't mean it's going to, even if it did work in California or didn't work, it doesn't mean it's the same thing's going to happen here.
No, Arizona has always been fiercely independent, fiercely conservative. We're kind of like cowboys still.
Absolutely. Daylight savings time is a great example that we just had, right? We don't change that for nobody.
We're fiercely independent, and we take care of ourselves. We take care of our community. And it's always been that way, and I think I don't like to see that change. I remember when my father came back from the Second World War, 1944, I think it was 45. He went back into the Goldwater store at the time to continue.
It's a department store with clothing, because some people don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it was a department store with women's and men's clothing.
Yes, I remember it when I was a little kid.
They had stores in 3 stores in Phoenix, and one in Tucson, one in Albuquerque, had one in Las Vegas, one in Prescott. Wow. And they were just a small regional family-owned business. And so he went to work with his brother, Bob, and the state was all Democrat at the time. But I guess they saw the trend, so they decided between the two of them that one of them should become a Republican for good business reasons.
Okay.
So they flipped a coin, and my dad lost, and he had to become the Republican.
Oh, that's funny.
And that's how he became the Republican. But my great uncle founded the Democrat Party up in Prescott.
Well, I think it's interesting to note that it's really about the policies. It doesn't really matter whether it's Democrat or Republican. It is about what's good for the environment. It's good for my point is that it's about
libertarian. What do you think about being a libertarian?
Go ahead and finish.
It's about this idea of let's do the right thing for the people in the state. It doesn't matter who the Democrats are. It doesn't matter who the Republicans are. There's, like you were saying earlier, you don't have to be a Democrat or a Republican to realize that, you don't want trash all over the place. You don't want miles of plastic in the middle of the ocean. You don't want animals dying, right?
You want our skies to be clear and beautiful.
You don't have to.
Right.
You want people to have a safety net where they feel empowered and they can go and be productive rather than be dependent, like you were saying earlier. Those aren't political lines. Those are just about helping people.
Well, to me, it doesn't matter what what party you're for. Everyone should care about our Earth and our planet
and each other.
Exactly. And you can have a difference of opinion, but you should still be amicable, I think.
Our founding fathers were far-sighted when they created our Constitution, and the 10th Amendment gave powers to the states that were not held by the federal government. So our states became very powerful. It's called a federalist system. And you're right, absolutely right. Local government is very, very important. And right now we're challenging President Biden on this mandate thing. And many, many states are gathering together, their attorney generals, and suing to stop that.
Right.
And so that's where your check and balance is, and it should be. But local government means all the way down to the school board.
Right.
And school boards are getting a lot of attention today, and it's important that mothers take back the control of their children and the school curriculum.
100%. 100%.
100%. And
I do believe that you should be able to be in charge of your own body as far as, a vaccine. I mean, I know that's very political. How do you feel about that?
I think that's...
you should just be able to decide yourself.
Right.
Exactly. I think you should be able to decide what goes in your body. I think so.
Absolutely.
If you're not willing to get the vaccine, if everybody's so opinionated about it, you could just, wear a mask and stay at home. I don't think you should be forced.
Well, the most important thing is you keep yourself healthy and you keep your immune system built up.
Yes.
Okay?
That's it.
Drinking all this Coca-Cola and eating the trash food that we eat as Americans are shame of ourselves. We need to eat healthy and keep our immune system up. I mean, when we have the flu, that's what happens. Our immune system takes over, and you give it 7 days, you're back at work. The COVID-19 is a little more serious, but that is a personal decision. But we can go a long ways for stopping all that if we just ourselves do a little better job of taking care of ourselves.
I agree, because when people are heavy-set and, like you're saying, that you don't exercise and eat the right diet, well, anything that you pick up, you're going to already be worse off because you're already unhealthy. So that makes...
in coaching, we talk about mind, body, spirit. You have to be able to treat your body well, to be able to treat your mind well, to be able to treat your spirit well.
You talked about mandates for the vaccine. That's President Biden talking. He's the president of the United States, and he was elected to unite the country and bring it together. We have a crisis of leadership today. And this is just one example coming out of the White House of telling companies what they have to do in our states. And as a result, we have a crisis of leadership in this country today, and it's reflected in the fact that his approval ratings are quite low, lower than any other president in the history of this country. And if you take a hard look around what's happening to our country today with inflation, that is a hidden tax that we're all paying at the grocery store, at the gas station. I mean, that's destroying us. We have all these cargo containers that are sitting out in the middle of the ocean with our Christmas presents on them.
That's just amazing to me as a business owner, as a person who coaches other business owners. This whole supply chain situation is on everybody's mind. We're all talking about it. It is just phenomenal that is going on right now.
So
it's hard to even believe that it's true.
So we just had RV and Go many times on the show,
Right.
and they have been a generous sponsor for this show. They sponsored NASCAR, and the show was invited to NASCAR. And everybody had these shirts on that said, "Let's go Brandon," the hat that said, "Let's go Brandon." And I'm sure you guys are familiar with that movement. Have you guys heard of that?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
Tell us what that means.
Okay, so I can't say it. I don't want to say...
Don't get into specifics. Just
Okay,
to
on
tell
air.
your story. Right.
But basically, there was somebody being interviewed that was a race car driver, and he, the crowd was chanting the F word with Biden.
Oh, geez.
And
Why can't you say fuck?
and then there you go.
Fuck Biden. That's what they were saying.
That's what they were saying.
But
And then the anchor apparently said, "Oh, they're saying let's go Brandon." And so now there's this huge movement in America with let's go. And like I would say 60% of the people out at NASCAR, I went 3 days in a row, had shirts, hats that said let's go Brandon. And that means that right now there's kind of a little bit of animosity towards our president.
Well, I
What do you
mean,
think about that?
the shameful withdrawal from Afghanistan, he should be ashamed of himself. I know I was embarrassed just as one citizen, the way we withdrew from Afghanistan after being over there for so many years and so many of Americans killed over there.
Terrible.
For what reason? And all of a sudden we just pulled up and left, and we left people there. You don't do that.
Right.
And that reflects on the President of the United States, and that's why they're saying, let's go Brandon.
Right.
You know, we got mothers that are trying to take back their school from critical race theory. That's all under the Biden administration. We have a culture that's starting to infest us today under the quietly. Black Lives Matter. Karl Marx, his whole philosophy was to divide and conquer. So you have diversity, you have LGBT, you have critical race theory, you have misogyny, you have all these new terms that are coming up that nobody really understands. But it's all about dividing people and getting them here and there, and then you conquer them. And that's a socialist game plan for destroying a nation.
Right. So what do you see as a solution to that?
Well, the solution is to get back to common sense government. This country was founded on liberty and freedom. That's why our people came here in the first place, to get away from the king in England. And now we're slowly getting back to it. The founder of Dubai was asked about the future of his country, and he said, my grandfather rode a camel, and he says, I drive a Mercedes. My son's is driving a Land Rover, and my great-grandson is going to drive a Land Rover, but my great-great-grandson is going to be riding a camel. And he said, why? He says, well, because diversity and hard times create strong men. Strong men create weak times. Weak times create weak men, and weak men cause trouble. And
it's a cycle.
It's a cycle. And all the great empires of our time, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, all those great countries were destroyed, not from without, but from within, inside of 240 years. The United States is going on 240 years right now, and there's a rot that's going on right in this country with all of this stuff that we're starting to see, this this leftward movement, this socialism towards socialism, and Karl Marx and the dividing and conquering kind of attitude. Black Lives Matter, defund the police. It's right out of the book. We've got to get back to basics, and that where the people are important. And the power in our Constitution came from the people, and our direction came from God. We've got to get back to that basic thing.
God.
Limited government.
I need to high five you.
Limited government. I'm not finished.
Okay.
Limited government. Live within our means. Nobody's talking about our budgets. Billions and trillions of dollars in debt. That's the greatest security risk that we have militarily, is our huge debt that we're going to have to pay for eventually. So you have limited government, less taxes. We don't need all these regulations to tell us how to do and build things. All that does is add on cost and cost and cost. Probably have to, and you need a strong national defense. Those basic conservative philosophies we need to get back to and use as our guideline for government. We don't need government to take care of us.
Right.
Let government get out of the way and let the American people live in liberty, because
In freedom.
every minute two people get together, that's the free market system. It's me satisfying myself by satisfying you. I sell you something and you give me the dollar back. We're both satisfied. That's going on 1,000,000 times every day. And that's the free market. And that's what's so genius about our system. That we have
Absolutely.
the freedom to do that.
Yes.
And if people want to be something, they can do it in this country. You may fall down once or twice or even 3 times, but you can still get up.
Right,
You can still get up and work hard. Take that big risk. And you
Capitalism.
Can be,
Freedom and capitalism.
that's what we need to get back to, instead of what we are today under Biden.
But the environment is still right up there. God, capitalism, freedom, environment.
Yeah,
we have to care about the environment. Do you agree?
But the free market system is part of preserving. It's in all of our best interest to
Exactly.
preserve. All we need from Washington is leadership. We need a president who stands up and encourages people to do things, motivates us to do things, not do it for us.
Right.
So true.
Or in
Gosh,
divide us.
these are such
right?
great
There
quotes.
have been so many, unfortunately, presidents lately that have really caused some division. And, I think you're right. We've got to get back to local politics. We've got to get back to common sense. We've got to get back to helping each other. I do have a question. You've mentioned many challenges. You've been faced with many, many challenges with your life. I'd like to know, was it of the 2 things that I'm going to mention, being a congressman or Kinga, which is the most challenging?
Being a congressman or Kinga?
I have a better question.
That was a horrible question. I apologize.
No.
What is a solution for the future? How we can come together to care about freedom, capitalism, the environment. Do you think is libertarian the answer?
Listen,
What do you think of that party?
The solution is, first of all, to love yourself. Take care of yourself.
Yes.
Nobody else is going to do that. You got to take care of yourself, keep yourself healthy. Then you start taking care of your family. That's so important.
Yes.
Then, if you have a little extra time, you take care of your community. It all starts with the individual and the contribution that we make. It's interesting that we always hear about welfare from Washington, but do you know that the people of the United States last year donated over $1.5 billion to charity? It's like in Phoenix, Arizona, there's got to be 20 or 30 different charities, Boys and Girls Club, all the different organizations that are charitable, and we get a tax deduction for making a contribution. What if
Alice Cooper Solid Rock. I'm very good friends of Alice and Cheryl. I love Alice Cooper Solid Rock. Donate.
What if the federal government sent a block grant down to Phoenix and have that divided up among all these charities? They're already taking care of the people.
Right.
They already have an organization that have people in the field. They know where the problems are. They know where to put those dollars.
Right.
Why, instead of having a separate bureaucracy to do this, basically the same thing.
Right.
I think that's a great solution for helping people who need help.
I think that's amazing.
But it starts with an individual,
I agree.
Kinga.
I love.
But
that
I
you're saying
am
that.
asking you back to the reason I keep asking you about how you feel about the Libertarian Party is because all of a sudden my son's been saying, maybe everybody should be libertarian, and we need to start maybe a third party where everybody's not so like polarized. How do you feel about that?
Well, there is no such thing as a Libertarian Party, first of all. There's people who call themselves libertarians, which I would say is nothing more than a good, solid conservative. Person that believes, as I just mentioned, limited government, limited taxes, limited regulation, and a strong defense. That's a definition of a conservative or even a libertarian. So I don't see that much difference between being a libertarian and a conservative.
Kind of the difference between Facebook and Meta.
Well, but if you have an election going and there's a party that's there's somebody running for president that's Democrat, somebody that's Republican, and then you've got somebody voting for the Libertarian, well, that helps decide who's going to win that election if too many people vote for the Libertarian.
That's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen.
Well, what's going to happen, what has happened in the past, is that party, whether it be conservative or liberal, has pulled votes away from the primary.
That's what I just said.
From the primary candidate. And so, there is a anytime you have a division, which is what Mr. Goldwater was talking about, is you're going to have less cohesiveness, right? So you add a third party, that's even more chaos, and that's even more division, right?
That's what I'm trying to say.
I love the fact that what it all boils down to, and we've talked about this in I don't know how many shows about it's about taking care of yourself first before you got to put your face mask on, if the plane's going down, before you can help anybody else. So you've got to be, we call it, you have to be greedy to be generous in coaching.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love that.
So we have 3 minutes left.
But politics, I would only encourage people to get involved, whether you're a Democrat, Libertarian, conservative. Get involved, and get involved at the school board level.
Don't we need more good people to run?
We need good people on the school boards. We need good people in charities. I've worked with many, many charities, and they're always looking for help. They're always looking for people because there's so much to be done. It's not hard to find people that need to be helped.
So what do you want to be, your legacy? What do you want to be remembered for?
I don't want to be remembered for anything. Why do I want to be remembered for something?
Well, just what's on your bucket list. What's important to you? What's your passion for the future?
I've always been pretty generous, like you. And so generosity is, if you can put generosity on my tombstone. I'll keep thinking of adjectives to put on the tombstone when I get there. It's not important, King. I've had a fascinating life. I've been fortunate to some of the places I've been to and many of the people I've met.
You're a charmer. Everybody loves you.
No. I've been blessed. I really have. And I come from a good family that came here as pioneers in Arizona. We helped build this state.
They did.
We've been involved, and so I'm very proud of that. I've enjoyed my life, and I figure I'm going to enjoy a lot more.
So I love everything you have taught us today, and I feel like every time I learn from you, and I'm very blessed to know you, and I think your family has really left a mark on Arizona.
Agreed. Well, thank you very much. This is In the Green Room, Saving the Planet, one show at a time,
with Barry Goldwater, Jr.
That's right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.